So in today's video, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people have questions about, and maybe you've seen the kiosks and you're very curious, but you're a little nervous. So we're going to talk about the Disney Vacation Club.
So if you've ever wondered what it's all about, how much it costs, and whether or not you should really do it, this is the video for you.
Stick around. So Eric and I are both Disney Vacation Club members. I joined back in 2006, and my home resort is the Saratoga Springs Resort.
Now, I joined in 2011, a little bit later. My home resort's Animal Kingdom Lodge, and I kind of joined at the recommendation of Bill, who had been a member for a while and said, definitely, you got to do it.
Right. If you don't know us, I am a emotional, just do it kind of guy, and Eric is a more analytical, get the numbers out and try to figure everything out, make sure if it makes sense. I don't operate like that. My wife and I went down to Disney after we had our second daughter. She was not even one, and we stayed at the All-Stars, and we fell in love with Walt Disney World, went home and bought the DVC.
Yeah, and we had been going to Disney for forever, ever since my wife and I were teenagers together. And we had talked about DVC, but I couldn't pull the trigger on it, not being able to analyze the numbers and know exactly how much it would cost and whether or not it was worth it. I mean, you see what they're doing. They're building all of these new DVC resorts and everything. And, when I was looking at it, it was always kind of, if Disney's pushing this so much, if it's such a big thing for them, they've got to be making a ton of money on this. And if they are, it means it's costing me money, but am I losing out in the end? And that's what I didn't know beforehand. So at some point, it finally came in 2011. I had to just jump in and do it.
Well, so when I first joined in 2006, there were more perks than there are now. You'd have free parking at some of the resorts. You'd have better discounts. There were things, and over the years, they've taken away some of those perks that being a DVC member used to give me. But if the whole way that you have to look at it is, if you're going to go to Disney, Walt Disney World, or any of the Disney properties that have a DVC portion to them, and you're going to be going consistently, it really makes sense to buy the DVC, and just you're going to end up saving money in the long run. Don't you agree?
Yeah, basically, if you're going every year, and I know I'm usually going like twice a year, if you're going that often, it definitely is worth it. Basically, it's an investment up front. But in the long run, over time, you're definitely going to make your money back.
Yeah, so to be 100% honest with you, this is exactly what it cost me. When I joined in 2006, I bought 210 points, and that's how it works. You're not buying a week, you're not buying an accommodation, you're buying into a point system. And each point has a dollar value. So when you pay, however many points you buy, you're paying per point for that. I paid $92 a point for 210 points back in 2006. So I basically paid $16,000 for my DVC Vacation Club membership that I own for 47 years.
Right, and that's a big investment up front, but over the long run, it's really not that big a deal. When I bought in 2011, I bought it at Animal Kingdom Lodge. They happened to open up a DVC showroom and sales center right nearby us in Long Island. So we had gone over there to take a look, and they were really pushing Animal Kingdom. They had a deal on it. So at the time, it was $100 a point. We had bought 200 points back then, so it cost me $20,000 at that time. But really what you're buying is, you're getting 200 points per year, and you get those for 50 years from the start of the resort. So if Animal Kingdom Lodge opened up in 2009, I think, 2008 maybe, you're getting that for 50 years. So it's 50 years from the day that the DVC property opens. So if you buy into it 5 years later, you're getting 45 years worth of points instead of 50 years worth of points. That's something that you have to think about. So when I bought in, I was kind of right at the beginning of Animal Kingdom Lodge. So I think I had 48 years or something like that worth of points that I'll be getting.
Right, and that's not the only cost though, because there are yearly dues, and those go up steadily. So mine were about $800 when I first joined in 2006, and now I pay a little over $1,000 a year in dues. But even with the dues and the initial outlay, I've still saved thousands and thousands of dollars over the course of my vacations, but you have to use it. And that is the main thing with it. You have to use this membership, because the points, you can only hold on to them for a year or two after the year that you're supposed to use them.
Right.
And then they just disappear. So you either have to use them, rent them, do something with them. Otherwise, it's a waste of money.
Yeah, you become an expert really quick in the management of the point system because it's really kind of complicated and there are date cutoffs and things like that. But you don't want to leave any points on the table at the end of the year and not use them. And so you want to be able to carry them over to the following year. But in order to do that, you have to have them set aside by a certain date. So there are a lot of little complicated rules involved. But once you figure it out, it took us about a year to really get a hold of it and figure it out. But once you have that figured out, it's really pretty easy.
So I own at a certain resort. Eric owns at a certain resort. Does that mean we have to stay at that certain resort? Absolutely not. I haven't stayed at Saratoga Springs in 10 years. So the way it works is there's a booking window. And this is one of the things about DVC is they'll sell you and tell you that, yes, you can do this, you can go here, go there. But the people that own at a certain resort have an advantage in booking. There's a 4-month booking window advantage. So what happens is the popular resorts in Walt Disney World will get booked up by the owners of those resorts quicker. So it's hard to get rooms. So you really have to be a planner, first off, and you have to know when you can vacation well in advance.
All right, yeah, you have basically, and usually if you plan a vacation a year in advance, so it works out fine. For your home resort, you can book a vacation 11 months prior
to the check-in date.
To the check-in date on your home resort. So for me, it's Animal Kingdom Lodge. So what we'll do is if we're planning a vacation a year in advance, we'll book our week at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, even if we don't want to stay there. You book it there. This is the way you make sure you got it locked in. And then, like Bill said, you have a 4-month window there. So 4 months later, 7 months before the start of your vacation, you can now book rooms at other DVC resorts. Right. So let's say you really want to stay at the Boardwalk. Well, 7 months out, you can go online, you can call and try to get a reservation on a DVC at the Boardwalk. At that point, everyone who owns at the Boardwalk, they've booked their vacations for that week already. It's probably filled up, but you put yourself on a waiting list. So now you can put yourself on a waiting list for Boardwalk, and you say, well, if that falls through and I can't stay there, maybe I want to stay at the Beach Club. So you put yourself on a waiting list for the Beach Club. And then you just wait, basically, is what you do for those to come through. And if you don't get it, the fallback is you get to stay at your home resort.
Right now, so as soon as the Polynesian opened up their DVC portions, my wife and I knew we really wanted to try that. We typically travel in August. My wife's a teacher, so we have time off in the summer. And at the 7th month window, on the day that I could book it, I'm always able to get my reservation for that time of year. If I wanted to stay during the Easter break, there's no way I'm getting a room at the Polynesian during the Easter break. The owners will have eaten that time slot up. During the holidays, Christmas, the 2 weeks around Christmas, again, 4th of July weekend, any kind of holiday weekend where the kids are off from school, the owners of those resorts are typically going to have booked those resorts first. So you're going to hear the term book where you want to stay when you start doing researches, or own where you want to stay, right? Is that what it is? Own where you want to stay. And that makes sense if you're going to be traveling during school vacations and holiday times.
Right, yeah. So you basically, that is a big consideration in what resort you're going to buy into. Do you want to stay there? Like for me, it was Animal Kingdom Lodge. We love staying there, and we don't stay there that often actually, but we do love it there. So it's fine if we end up being there. So the other considerations are obviously cost, because each DVC resort has a different cost hierarchy, and the amount of years that you have left in each DVC contract matters also. So the older DVC resorts, like Beach Club, Old Key West is an original, those only have at this point about 25 years left in them. So if you're buying into them, it's going to cost less, but you don't have 50 years, you only have 25 years. The newer ones are going to cost a lot more. Grand Floridian is expensive anyway, and it's actually new. Copper Creek at Wilderness Lodge, those are brand new. Those you're going to be able to buy into it for 47 or 50 years at this point, but they're going to be more expensive. So those, you have to weigh those options.
The thing that's great about it is the person that buys into the Grand Floridian and maybe spends, how much is it a point roughly?
$220 a point.
$220 a point to buy into the Grand Floridian. I paid $92 a point. Right. But if I want to stay there and the room's available, I can stay there just like the owner who paid more can. And that's what's great about this system is if you can buy points at a less expensive resort, and you can also buy points on the used market. So there are ways to save money on the initial purchase, but still be able to stay at the nicer resorts, but you're going to be losing that window. But if you're willing to travel on off times or when school is in session, there's a good chance you're going to be able to get the resort you want at the time you want and the different room levels that you want. Do you want to talk about the rooms?
Yeah, we'll talk about the rooms. I just want to mention the price. Now, Bill bought his for $92 at Saratoga Springs. Saratoga Springs right now is going for $150 if you buy new from Disney World, directly from DVC. The prices have gone up a lot in the past several years, really because of the way they're building them and the demand. Prices are a lot more now than they were. After about a year of owning, I realized how valuable these points were and how much we were really, saving money on them. So I actually bought more points, also at Animal Kingdom Lodge, but I bought them in the resale market. So basically the way that works is you have people who own points who just want to resell them. There are online markets for that. So we found somebody who was selling the amount of points that we wanted at Animal Kingdom Lodge. And I think they were selling them for $80 a point. They had them listed. So we offered them $70 a point. And they accepted. Now, Disney has first right of refusal. They can actually come in and basically block the deal and say, no, we want to buy them back for $70 a point, and then I'm out of luck. But that didn't happen, and we were able to actually buy points at the Animal Kingdom Lodge for $70 per point. We had bought them for $100 a point only a couple of years earlier.
The thing that was really attractive to me when I was first looking at this, and you get to go look at the models. They have, somewhere on Disney's property, they will always have models, and you walk in and they're like little apartments. Where a typical hotel room will have a bathroom, maybe a couch or a chair and some tables and 2 beds. These are set up more for living in. They're like little houses. So there are studios, which are basically close to a hotel room, but still they have mini kitchens, a couch, a bed. There's usually a balcony, and they're part of the DVC resort. But then the next level up is a 1-bedroom, which now you have a master bedroom with a master bath suite. Some of them have, depending on which resort, they have 2 bathrooms in them, full kitchens, living rooms. So now you're starting to stay in what is like a small apartment, right?
Yeah, these spaces, if you had to actually pay out of pocket for them, are just it's too expensive.
Right.
It really is. It's going to break your budget for a week-long vacation staying in these kind of places.
Right, and there's a washer and dryer. Anything above a 1-bedroom or higher, as far as 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom grand villas, they all have washers and dryers in them, which is great. So you can actually do your laundry in the room, which is one of my wife's favorite things. That that machine's constantly going when we're in one of those.
Oh yeah, we're always running laundry. Now it used to be one of the downsides of DVC was you only got housekeeping like once a week with DVC. But that really doesn't matter. I mean, if you see all of Disney resorts now, they're actually offering you gift cards to actually forego the housekeeping for a few days. People really don't need it. Other than just getting fresh towels, you really don't need a housekeeper every single day. So it's really not a big deal to not have housekeeping.
Right. So it's a different level of accommodation. It's a nicer accommodation. They keep the rooms are all beautiful. They're constantly renovating the older resorts. So you're getting the best of the best as far as like Disney resort accommodations when you become a DVC member. So when we first stayed at the All Stars, and then I saw what we would, there was initial investment, but going forward, I went from the All Stars to deluxe level accommodations for every stay after that for the last 15 years. So it's been an amazing way to enjoy my Disney vacations, and I've been going twice a year for a fraction of what it would cost to. First of all, I never would have been able to afford those kind of accommodations. So that's why it was so appealing to me. And in hindsight, I'm very glad I did it.
Yeah, that's really, and the cost is the big thing. So in figuring out whether or not this is really worth it, the way I figured it is, you have to take the amount of points that you buy. So for me, it was 200 points, and I bought them at $100 a point. So I basically spent $20,000 on points. But I'm not just buying 200 points. I'm buying 50 years worth of 200 points. So I actually bought 10,000 points for $20,000. So each point cost me $2. Now on top of that, I have the maintenance. So every month you pay, the monthly dues / maintenance. And right now for Animal Kingdom, it's probably about $6.50 per point. So let's just round it off to $7. So basically, you take the $2 per point plus the $7 maintenance, and that $9 per point is what it costs me every time I use a point. So if I go and I stay a week at Animal Kingdom Lodge, which I did back in April, that trip cost me 100 points. So basically, I take the 100 points that I'm using, $9 a point. That trip cost me $900. Now, if I would have stayed at the room that I stayed in Animal Kingdom Lodge for that week, and I went online and I figured it out, it would have cost me $3,000 to stay in that room.
That's the huge thing.
That's
an amazing
$2,000 savings right there. So you're getting a really valuable room that I wouldn't have stayed in otherwise for a third of the price, basically. And what I do, and this is just how I have to keep track of it, I make sure on each trip, if we're staying in, let's say, a one-bedroom suite in the Animal Kingdom Lodge, well, if we were paying out of pocket on that, we wouldn't be staying there at all. It just isn't even an option. So we will kind of look at each trip and say, well, where would we be staying if we were going on this trip and we weren't in the DVC? So then we'll take that and we'll figure out what that would cost us in a week. So what we figured out for the April trip is the room we would have stayed in would have cost about $1,900 for the week. So in real dollars, I'm saving $1,000 right there, getting a deluxe room versus a room that we kind of, four of us would have crammed into for the week.
Right. And by the way, I do none of this analytics. I'm so glad he does, because I don't. I basically did a basic assessment in my head. To give you an example, 2 years ago when we stayed at the Polynesian, I looked up the rack room rate for the Polynesian, the room that we were staying in. So now the DVC rooms in the Polynesian are all the same. They have the bungalows out in the water, which are astronomical in price, points, whatever. They're very expensive. But the regular rooms, they took the longhouses and just converted them all into the same style DVC room. So basically, it's a bed, a fold-out couch, a little Murphy bed under the TV, but it has 2 bathrooms, which is huge for a family of 4. And that was one of the things that we really, really loved. It has a room with a shower and a sink, and then another room that has a full tub and shower, vanity, and a toilet. So you have basically 2 bathrooms in this room. The room rack rate was $650 a night, and I stayed there for 8 nights. So I would never spend that kind of money on a hotel room typically. I would, that just seemed like a lot to me, and I don't know if I could afford that kind of budget. But it only cost me 150 points out of my point. I didn't even use my yearly allotment of points to stay those 8 nights. So that's where the value really is, in like real tangible ways when you think about it.
Right, you're really getting a deluxe resort experience. You're getting to stay in a one-bedroom suite. You're getting to stay at the deluxe resorts like Grand Californian and Polynesian, as opposed to the moderate resorts. That's really where it makes the big difference. I've stayed in the last 7.5 years that I've been a member. I've stayed in, I think, about a total of 100 nights. So the averages are really going to weigh out over 100 nights. The rooms that I've stayed in over those 100 nights over 7.5 years, if I would have paid for them out of pocket, averaged $600 a night for the rooms that we've been staying in over 7.5 years. The point value that I've basically been using per night over that time comes to about $200. So I'm staying in a $600 room night for $200.
Right.
And that's really, that's really where the value is.
One of the other things, this is not a commercial, but we both just want to, I know a lot of people don't know how it works or why it doesn't work. And so our partner Holly that we made the book with, she actually always looked into DVC, but it never worked for her because she wasn't able to plan out her vacation so far in advance. And that's one of the things about it, that if you're a fly-by-the-night, hey, let's take a trip down to Disney, this is probably not for you, right?
I mean, it's really for long-term planning. You want to be able to plan out, 6 months or a year in advance. You have to be planning that far ahead of time.
So one of the other things that's great about it is, so for me, this next summer coming up, I'm actually going to be staying at Fort Wilderness. Now, they don't have a DVC portion there. They don't have anything. I plan on going there in a travel trailer. So I'm not going to use my DVC points this year. So I don't want to waste them. What do I do? Now, I have a couple of choices. I can bank them and just put them in the next year. And that'll give me another year where I can just kind of hold on to them. And then that year, I'm going to have to do something with them, either use them or rent them or something, or I can rent them to someone. So what I might do is put those points up for rent, and somebody else can, use those points and stay on them, and I can actually collect money on that.
Right, yeah. So your points can never go to waste if you're not going to use them. If you think you might use them the following year, like Bill said, you bank them to the following year, and now instead of having 200 points this year, 200 next year, now you have 200 points for next year. Where you can get into a little bit of danger is you can always also borrow points from the following year.
Right. So which I have done since day one. I am always in a constant state of borrowing points.
I've never caught up either. I'm always behind. Right. So, if you're staying on a bigger trip this year, let's say you need 300 points and you only have 200 this year, you can borrow 100 points from next year and just use them this year. Then next year you only have 100 left, and that's how you get.
You could borrow from the year ahead, but you can only go 1 year out. So it's not like you could borrow 800 points from 4 years out and then you have no points for a few years. They let you go basically 1 year before and after. You can either borrow or save 1 year before and after the year you're in.
Right. And now the points aren't only go to Disney World. You can use them in Disneyland. I've used them to stay in the Grand Californian
we did
a couple of times, which I don't know if we would have stayed in otherwise. They're good on the
Alani.
cruise. That's right, the Alani, the Vero Beach, and Hilton Head Island. They're good there. Also, you really get a lot of bang for your buck at those resorts. Also, they're good for the cruise line. A dollar for dollar, it really doesn't match up.
I don't think it pays to do that. It's not a good use of points, and that's something you learn also. What is a good use of my points? Do I want to? Now you could take your vacation points and stay in an all-star resort with them if you wanted to,
right.
But you're not getting any value out of that. So you really want to try to figure out the best way to use them, and it's always to go to the higher end deluxe DVC resorts.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're going to rent the points, typically you can get between $10 and $15 per point to rent. So if you have 100 points that you're going to rent out at $15, that's $1,500 in your pocket. That covers your maintenance for the year, and you can actually make a couple of dollars. And if you have 210 points, you still have 110 to use if you want.
Right.
So if you want to rent out an entire year's worth of points, you can put $3,000 in your pocket and still have your membership and still do whatever you want with it. But you can also go into the RCI program, right?
Right. Yeah, you can trade those points for points in the RCI program, which, there are hotels and resorts that you can stay on around the world that participate in that program. You can just basically trade in your points for those. Instead of staying on Disney properties, you can stay on those properties. Again, just like the cruise line, you don't get as much bang for your buck. It doesn't really match up as well dollar for dollar. But if you have the points and you're not going to be using them for Disney, you can rent them. You can transfer them to RCI and use them for something else. You're never really losing them as long as you manage them properly.
Well, I've actually looked into this because, we were talking about maybe going to, Colorado or Utah. And so we would maybe not go to Disney one summer and do a trip like that. And instead of staying a week in Disney or whatever, I would stay in let's say it's a Marriott or a Sheraton or whatever hotel property is built into the RCI timeshare system. You would stay there, and I would use about 160 points for a one-bedroom accommodation. I think it's something like that. But I would stay there, and basically my accommodation would be taken care of. So it's a great way to see other places if you're, either not going to be staying in Disney or you just want to try something else.
Right. Yeah, so if you've ever thought about it, I hope this video actually gives you some more info. I would have loved to have seen something like this 8 years ago when I was first thinking about it. If you're ever thinking about it, definitely, weigh these options. You can always get out of it once you've gotten into it. I hear ads on the radio all the time now for these timeshare nightmares, people trying to get out of them. With Disney, you can just go online and sell them to third party. You can sell them back to Disney. You're not going to get all your money back, obviously, but you're not stuck in it forever. You can rent them out if you're not using them. You can always resell them. But it might be something that if you are going, once a year, twice a year, it's probably something worth considering.
Yeah, one of the great things about buying into, this is basically a timeshare. They're going to call it vacation ownership, whatever they want to call it. But the basic thing about buying into Disney is everybody wants to go to Walt Disney World at some point.
Right.
So it has a lot of value. It has a lot of value when you rent. It has a lot of value when you go to sell, when you trade into the RCI system. So basically when you trade in, they're basically sending someone the other way towards Disney.
Right.
But that's not a problem. So you're not going to have those typical problems that people have where they maybe can't get out of their timeshare. I've had even family members have trouble selling it. And, so you're not going to run into that, as much of that with the Disney. So I feel like it's a good product to buy into.
Yeah, plus there's perks. There's other things, there's discounts you can get on shopping and dining. I think we average on a week vacation, we average probably about $50 worth of savings, just on the DVC savings alone. You can get into places that you can't normally get into. The top of the world on top of Bay Lake Tower, you need to be a DVC member or guest to get up there. And we always find almost every time we go, there's an event. There's something going on that's open to either DVC members only, or DVC members get some kind of special access to it. There are all kinds of perks involved.
Yeah, and the resorts are great. They just keep making them better and better. And that's one of the things I really love is like now I've never stayed at the Copper Creek and the new Wilderness Lodge, renovation that they just did. So I'm excited to go, back to there someday, because I've stayed at the old Wilderness Lodge, in the old DVC room wings, but they've redone everything. So it's like having a new resort. It's actually a great way to experience Walt Disney World, save some money, and have the best accommodations.
Yeah, it really, a lot of it is about the feels. It feels better when you're a DVC member. When you go there and they tell you welcome home, and you just know, it feels like home anyway, but it feels a little bit even better.
Yeah,
remember.
I'm sure there's other things that we haven't discussed. When we're putting the video together, I'm going to be dropping in images that I've pulled off the internet. Some of them might be from Disney's site and some from allears.net. This is a great resource for you to look at just information. They have a ton of information, stuff that we could never gather. We have images of the resorts, but they've gone through every resort, taken pictures of all the different levels of accommodations, or they have all the information in there. And when I was buying and right after I did to find out where I wanted to stay, that was a resource I used all of the time. So some of the images that you'll see will be from their website.
Yeah, we don't have many pictures of bathrooms and beds and things like that, so we have to rely on other people for those.
Yeah, but I'm going to put a link to their site in the comments. So if you want to go check it out, you can go to them. They don't have they have no affiliation with us or anything, but it's just a great site that I use all the time. So I figured, let me just throw them some love. It's a good site.
Just a nice resource to use. So, but if you have any questions, and you may have questions, I can share my calculator with you. I'd love to do some math with you. Put those in the comments below. Anything we can do to help you, not to convince you, but to answer your questions and make you feel a little more comfortable.
It's definitely not for everyone. Right. So and it is an investment up front. Now, here's one other thing we didn't mention quickly. Disney will let you finance this out over 10 years if you want. So if that's something think of it like a purchase, like a boat, an RV, something like that, where they have the long financing to keep the payments down, but you're going to have a higher financing rate. But if it's, there's a cost to value ratio that you have to decide what's important to you. Is it the family time, the vacations you're going to have? And for us, I think it was a well worthwhile investment, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be able to, every time I walk into a hotel room in Disney World now, the first thing I hear from my kids' mouths are, wow! It's this huge room with a kitchen and a dining room and a whole separate bedroom. It feels good to be able to walk in and then live in that space the time that you're there.
Yeah, it's great. So thumbs up, please. It helps us out if you like the videos. Subscribe to the channel if you want more video like this.
And yeah, click on the little notification bell. This time you get an email every time we post a video.
Yeah, great. An email, just what you want. Okay, so we'll see you in the next one.